Labour Friends of Kashmir organised a large dinner at the Labour Annual Conference in Brighton with over 100 delegates, including shadow ministers, MPs, Lords, National Executive Committee members, councillors, mayors and trade union leaders. The event focused on the importance of Labour developing a strong policy based on protecting the human rights and civil liberties of Kashmiris and the international community honouring the committing of a plebiscite.
Labour Friends of Kashmir wanted to pull this evening together to say a very, very big thank you to each and every one of you. Many of you here have been campaigning for this very, very important issue for a very long time, some of you for decades. And we want to say a big thank you to you. And we want to say thank you in advance as we really step up in the coming months and years in order to really profile this very, very important issue right across the Labour movement. We want a policy that's not pro-Pakistan. We want a policy that's not anti-India. We want a policy that's pro-human rights. And importantly, it gives the people of Kashmir the right to decide their future.
Labour Friends of Kashmir is a new organisation in the Labour movement. We want to be the voice of sensible, moderate position on the issue of Kashmir. We want to work with the Labour leadership to ensure that our future Labour government is able to facilitate a discussion with international partners to ensure that the story of Kashmir is told and that the issue of Kashmir starts to be resolved. My view, perfectly clear. This is not a bilateral issue. Human rights will never be a bilateral issue.
It is my singular honour to be given the privilege of addressing the Labour Friends of Kashmir and to be talking to you about the situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Let me begin by thanking the House of Commons and the Labour Party parliamentarians in the House in particular for maintaining the sharp focus on the continuing egregious human rights violation in Kashmir. Let us individually and collectively raise our voices in support of the Kashmiris and to tell India enough is enough.
I just want to say a couple of things really quickly. One is the Labour Party should never take the people of Kashmir or the Kashmiri population for granted. The Labour Party should never compromise on the principle of human rights. The Labour Party should never compromise on the principle of equality and justice. But I also want to say one hard message to our Kashmiri brothers and sisters as well. And please don't take offence to what I'm about to say here. Our young people are rightly campaigning about issues of equality and social justice and fairness the other side of the world. Largely our young people, though, are talking about the issue of Palestine. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be talking about the issue of Palestine. Of course, we should be talking about the issue of Palestine. But unless you inform, unless you educate, unless you inspire your children, Kashmiri children right here in Britain, to talk about the issue and the cause of Kashmir, we will never see peace and justice in Kashmir. So let's call out all atrocities. Let's call out all injustices, no matter who is perpetrating those injustices anywhere in the world. If we do that, we can, one, elect a Labour government, and two, we can deliver peace and justice around the world.
What I want to say to you is that the whole time I've been in Parliament, I've taken every opportunity I can to speak about the plight of the Kashmiri people and to make a case for their rights of self-determination and for their human rights to be protected. I will never stop doing that. It doesn't matter whether I'm a backbencher, a frontbencher, whatever role I have in shadow cabinet or whatever may happen to me in the future. This is a cause that I will continue to speak about. And we do need more of you to get involved, exactly as Anas said, raise awareness in our communities and make sure that when the Labour Party comes forward at the next election, I can guarantee we will never, as a national campaign coordinator, we will never take any community for granted, and we will certainly never take the Kashmiri community here in this country for granted. But we do need all of you to work together with us to make sure that this is front and centre of a human rights-based foreign policy.
The Labour Party is not meant to be a party that supports colonialism in any way. It's not meant to be a party that turns the other way when human rights abuses are being practised. We have to practice what we preach, no matter who is involved. We have to support self-determination because that's what we say we are all about. And we have to do this without exception, regardless of who is involved.
The situation in Kashmir is a scar on the conscience of the world. 72 years of a running conflict which has to have a peaceful resolution. My message to Prime Minister Modi would be very clear. It is, you cannot deliver peace down the barrel of a gun. You can only deliver peace through negotiation, through dialogue. And it is absolutely clear that the United Kingdom has to play a role in that. This is not, as has been said already, a bilateral issue. Human rights can never be a bilateral issue. This has to be about those of us who have responsibility to step up and take that responsibility and to push for peace and justice and reconciliation. That can only take place if the voice of the Kashmiri people is heard loud and clear.
The message is very straightforward. Our High Commissioner said to say to India, enough is enough. All I'm going to say is I think there are a few others who need to be told enough is enough. And that includes the permanent members of the UN, whose prime responsibility it is to maintain peace in the world. Their silence is equally guilty, I would say. And the second is the UN itself as an institution, 70 years failing to implement its own resolutions when you already have Pakistan, India, giving how they want to implement the plebiscite. It's not there's any disagreement. There is an agreement. Even how it should be carried out, both countries are given. So enough is enough on these as well.
My basic statement for today is all that is required for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. So brothers and sisters and young people that are here today, don't do nothing. The genocide has gone on for too long, over 70-odd years. How much more do we have to wait? We need this resolved in our lifetime. We have to remember that each one of us belongs to one race, the human race, and that's all it's about.
But if we have asked the Kashmiri community to support us, Labour, then we owe a sacred duty to the Kashmiri community to support their cause. And we will. We will stand with you every step of the way until such time as the 72-year-long offence against human dignity, human rights finally comes to an end. The Kashmiri community decides its own future.
I just want to send my solidarity to the Kashmiris. We know in Luton, being born and bred Lutonian, I was born and brought up with my Kashmiri friends. So I've always understood the struggle that's been there. And as Yasmin said, we all have a responsibility to talk about this issue, to educate others on this issue, so that ultimately we can get peace and justice in Kashmir and the right of Kashmiris for their self-determination.
Well, I think Kashmir doesn't need articulation of the problem. Kashmir deserves resolution. And I think people made a point that it's not bilateral issue, it's international.
Labour Party member, I believe a Labour Party is a government should ensure that human rights abuses are tackled across the world, including Kashmir.
Speakers including the Pakistan High Commissioner to the UK, His Excellency Muazzam Ahmed Khan, Shadow Asia Minister Stephen Kinnock MP, National Campaign Coordinator Shabana Mahmood MP, Scottish Labour Leader Anas Sarwar MSP, Chairman of Labour Friends of Kashmir Andrew Gwynn MP, Bel Ribeiro Addy MP, Jack Dromey MP, Afzal Khan MP, Lord Wajid Khan, Rachel Hopkins MP, Tan Desi MP, General Secretary of Labour Friends of Kashmir, Councillor Wasim Zafar and others. The event was attended by 8 members of the Labour Party National Executive Committee, who are the body that run the Labour Party. SM Irfan Tahir, World News Brighton.